We are inching closer. We are inching closer to the NFL draft. And we're in the middle of draft season. And while other sports, other leagues are playing actual games, the NFL still owns the headlines because the NFL draft is such an important part of the NFL calendar year. And of course, it's the freaking National Football League, which usually owns the headlines anyway. And while I've touched on everything else under the sun, really, in the sports world recently on Mic Drop, like I normally do, I haven't talked that much draft and that much what the Steelers are going to do or should do in this year's NFL draft, aside from touching on it on our morning show here, Mic'd Up on Pittsburgh Sports Live, for a little plug there, a little shameless plug. But I'm going to tackle it now. I'm going to tackle it on this broadcast, and really just one topic, about if the Steelers should draft a particular position, a clear position of need with that first pick in the NFL draft. If the Steelers should go running back with that first pick in the NFL draft. I'm going to give you both sides. I'm going to give you my take. I'm going to tell you why maybe it's been argued incorrectly, and those two sides aren't really administering the best arguments for their opinion. Also want to remind you, leading into that Steelers first pick in the first round, we will have a live broadcast here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, so subscribe. It's free to do so thanks to our sponsors throughout the Now family of networks, and of course here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. Myself and the Steelers Now crew will be with you as we take you towards that Steelers first-round pick, 24th of the first round as we stand, and then discuss it all on our thoughts and our analysis on that pick. And we also have Draft Talk, Alan Saunders, Nick Fairbaugh. They've been giving you that daily quick-hitting talk, which is why also I haven't touched on it that much on Mic Drop, kind of leaving it to them up until the NFL draft show here on PSL. But again, people are saying the Steelers should go running back. There are people saying the Steelers got to go running back. It's been so putrid, and I can't deny that. The Steelers running game has been god-awful now for a while, and I've said this before, and some may hate me for this, and some may say I'm just being a hater because everyone loves the man, and I like him too. But James Conner's not a featured back. We know the James Conner story. We know Erie. We know Pitt. We know overcoming cancer. That's touched my family countless times. I admire him for that and for that story. He's very much an inspiration for that. Great story to be drafted by the Steelers. Kind of maybe fall to the Steelers, third-round pick. That first year, way better than many thought. I actually lost a bet to a former co-host of mine at 93.7 The Fan and colleague. Had him on this show before. Friend Doran Dickerson, former NFL player, former Pitt All-American. In terms of how many touchdowns Conner would score that year, I was wrong. I didn't think Conner would really do anything that year. He certainly proved me wrong. He's not been able to be healthy since, though. He's a nice guy to have. He's proven he's not a featured back just off health alone, but he's been a roller coaster ride. There's not been enough around him, whether it be Benny Snell, Jalen Samuels, whoever else. It's not been enough the last couple of years. There's not been anybody really to tote the rock with consistency. It makes it difficult on a team with young quarterbacks who were trying to do it for the first time a couple of years ago with Ben in his later years. And, of course, Ben going to be back for one more go-around this coming season, and then the quarterback position in flux, so who knows after that. It's going to make it harder on whoever's out there, but certainly when it's not a guy in his prime who can be elite. That's not the case with or without Ben right now. So you want some semblance of a running game. Yeah, there are weapons as receiver. Yeah, there were weapons at tight end, but you want a running game, and they haven't had it, and it's definitely held this team back. So I get the desire. I really, really do. And I get Harris being brought up, Najee Harris being brought up, his success in college, the pedigree he came from in college. He could maybe be that pounder, that elite back that they've so coveted. But I also want to remind you, while that makes sense, I don't think he's going to be there for the Steelers. And even if he is, because the running back position has not been a position that's been drafted in that first 15 picks, Steelers at 24, so outside of that. But it's not even been a top 20 position really anymore, and there's a reason. That's kind of my thoughts here. The people saying that they should draft a running back, of course, are focusing on the need, and I get it. You're seeing one elite back out there. There aren't many in this draft. There are some good ones, but there's not one slam dunk guy. And it is a position, this would be an argument for drafting, it is a position like receiver maybe, you can have an impact right away. And they feel like the Steelers need that impact right away. That argument would be that if Ben comes back, Ben is coming back, your thought process has to be all the way through that offseason, winning it right now. One more try for Ben. And I'm not to say they're not doing that. They clearly wouldn't have been back if they wanted to completely rebuild. They have talent still there. They do want to go at it one more time. I don't think they're going to get there, but that is the goal. Okay. So that is the goal. And they've lost some pieces. They have some pieces returned. It's a defense that needs to mightily improve. There are other spots of needs as well, but running back position absolutely has to be a top need for the Steelers. And maybe if Harris is there, you take him. He's really the only running back I would take in the first round. But understanding what you're saying on that side, that they got to go running back, it's been a position of problem for years. Maybe if he's there, okay, I could be okay with him, not really anybody else. And the immediate impact right away and going for one more time. That is the argument for drafting a running back in the first round. That you really got to hang your hat on the argument being the Steelers are going for it one more time, so do whatever you can to make the team better right away and worry about the future later. That has to be the argument to draft a running back right away because of why I wouldn't do it. The shelf life is not as long as many other positions. It's a risky situation. Offensive tackle, not. Center clearly needs replaced, but offensive tackle in general does. It's a safer pick usually. Even corner, even safety, even secondary, they can be impact players right away. People focus on running back and receiver and forget those can be impact players right away. Clearly a position of need, it almost always is, but certainly more now than ever before with Hilton gone, even with Cam Sutton coming back. That can be a position of need right away. You're not going to go receiver, of course, with Juju back and that kind of being stacked now. Of course, Claypool brought in last year's draft. And trading up for Bush a couple years ago, then going defensive. I get it. There's not a quarterback there that's going to fall to the Steelers or be a Steelers guy at that point. You're not going to see Fields, Trevor Lawrence. You're not going to see a quarterback that is that guy that you got to go ahead and get, especially with the Jets clearly going to get that guy now with Sam Darnold being traded. And I will tell you, I wouldn't do it in first round, but I would have considered trading for Sam Darnold because that's a proven commodity. Even though he's not been good in the NFL, that's a proven younger guy. I think he's been in a crappy situation with the Jets. I think he could do it with a better situation in the NFL. And that's better than anyone else besides those first couple quarterbacks in the draft that are going to be gone well before the Steelers. But since he's not there, there are safer picks that also can be impact. People forget they also can be impact players at offensive tackle, at corner. They can be impact right away too, and they're clearly need. So it's not just running back being a need, even if you think it's a greater need. The others maybe are safer picks and also need. So it's not like they can't help you right away as well. And I'm not saying you shouldn't go for it right away this year with Ben coming back, and that's the thinking behind drafting a running back, especially if Harris is there. But the shelf life for future, and this draft needs to be not only about the present but also the future because the future is kind of in flux for the Steelers. And Ben could get hurt in a moment, or Ben could be worse than he's been in a moment. He certainly puttered it off at the end of last year as the Steelers season crashed and burned. Is that position's not a long shelf life. Unlike receiver, unlike others, unlike secondary, unlike corner, unlike offensive tackle, unlike even center, despite Pouncey not hanging around forever and maybe a short career for that type of player, but still longer shelf life than back, longer shelf life than running back. Most running backs are playing 3 years in the NFL at their best before they get banged up and pinged around and like a ping pong out there. Every hit is like a car crash that's been said. An elite back, maybe 5 or 6 years. Okay? Even Hall of Fame backs are not looking to go more than 8, and they're not nearly as good towards the end. And yes, some Adrian Peterson out there, some go longer, some go over a decade, but they're not close to what they were also at that point. The shelf life's shorter. The injury history is more likely, and the risk is there. Yeah, they could have an impact, maybe a greater impact for next season because that is a position that needs corrected. Immaterial of Connor, he's not a feature guy. But the shelf life's not there. That's maybe the one concern. That's the one key. The shelf life's not there. You're going to get him for a couple years. You're going to get maybe 2 or 3 year production possibly, and then who knows what else? Who knows what could happen? So that's a position that would be a draft just for next year potentially. That's not for the future as well. You'd rather draft a guy that can be part of your long term and that you know that it can have more comfort in that. Outside of the shelf life, which is why teams are not drafting running backs high anymore. That's why they're not paying them tons of money anymore. They're realizing the shelf life's not there for that position. There's not really a guy besides maybe Harris that you even can guarantee will be dominant. I don't think he'll even be there for the Steelers. I don't think that would be a position that you need to focus on right away. But it's not, while it's a need for the Steelers, it's not a need to be a championship team and have an elite back. I think this is what's confused by some people. Yes, you need to have a good running game. You need to have a much better running game than the Steelers have been offering their fans the last couple of years, for sure. For sure. But you don't need to have Le'Veon Bell in his prime to win. That didn't win a championship. You've seen his career since. See why the Steelers didn't pay him big money, and they were correct in not doing so. We've seen why Todd Gurley's no longer getting big money and was shipped off the Rams after they went to a Super Bowl, and he wasn't even the driving force of that postseason. But that's kind of my point here. Yeah, the Steelers need to correct the need. Yeah, they've been bad on the ground. But not only is the shelf life not there, not only is it riskier, not only is it just the present and not the future, and you want that position and that first-round pick to be more, like a Devin Bush, to be more than just about the present, but also the long-term future. That's why that pick, even trading up to get him, was so great for the Steelers. That's a decade-long move, you would figure, potentially a face of the defense guy when healthy. That's a long-term investment. Even Claypool, long-term investment as a draft pick for the Steelers. And that's not just first round, but, you get what I'm saying. You're going to get more years, even if you also get immediate production. You never know with the back position. You never know with the running back position. It's not as long-term. It's not as guaranteed. There's risk there. But also, recent champions haven't needed an elite back. You need a running game. That's what the misconception is. That's what I need to let you know of. That's what I'm trying to better argue this on. This really gets it out of the way. This is simplified. I can tell you this here as I kind of round things out on this show. The reason why the Steelers shouldn't draft a running back position in the first round, not only just the shelf life, not only just the risk, not only are there safer picks and even greater needs or equal needs for the Pittsburgh Steelers, not to diminish the need at running back, but the Pittsburgh Steelers should not draft a running back in the first round of this year's NFL draft because you don't need an elite back to win a championship. The Steelers need a running game. They need a better running game. But it's been proven in the NFL. You don't need an elite running game. And if you're not drafting an elite running back, then there's no point of drafting a running back in the first round because the shelf life's not there, because of the risk, because you have other needs, because there are safer picks out there. So the Steelers shouldn't go running back, not only just because they have other needs, not only just because the shelf life's not there compared to other positions, not only just because there are safer picks out there, but also you look at that Rams run to a Super Bowl. Todd Gurley didn't do much in the postseason. C.J. Anderson off the couch led them to that appearance. The New England Patriots, mostly during the whole dynasty of Brady and Belichick. Kevin Falk, the staple back. Corey Dillon early on, but not many elite backs otherwise. Okay? They did it with a myriad of backs in a collective unit. Philadelphia, when they won the Super Bowl, a collective unit of running backs, not just one featured guy. The Chiefs, they haven't had a featured guy that's been a group. The Buccaneers, not a featured guy that's been a group. LeGarrette Blount didn't do much for the regular season, picked it up in the playoffs, but that's been a group. I can go on and on and on. And there are aberrations, of course, in recent memory with Marshawn Lynch, a Hall of Fame type guy at that point in his prime, certainly helping a young quarterback and a more defensive-led team to that title at that point. But once Russell Wilson's become an elite back or become an elite quarterback, they've had some great running back position production, but they've also had some collective unit production. And yeah, the quarterback position would be much helped by having an elite back, but it would also just be helped by simply having a running game. The Steelers need a running game, but they maybe could get that running game help later on. They could maybe get running back help other ways, okay? They do need to improve the running game, for sure, but they also need to improve the secondary, especially with Hilton gone and even with Cam Sutton back. They need to improve the line both ways. They need to improve a lot, okay? You're not going to get your quarterback with that pick. You didn't trade for Darnold. So you're looking at maybe a guy later on. Who knows what's going to happen with that position? I get it, but that's not going to be your first-round pick. You need to replace center. Maybe if there's a guy there, that might be your most important spot, and that could be a long-term investment. You need secondary. Those can be impact players like running back. And for longer periods of time, if there's somebody there and there are more players to tinker with that you can love and be similar on your draft board. You're looking at Harris, others, but Harris being that elite guy, likely Harris won't be there. Maybe he will be because the rank position is not valued and kind of agreed with what I'm saying by NFL GMs and execs. But you don't need an elite running back. You need a running game. The Steelers need a running game, but they do not need an elite running back. So since the shelf life's not there, the risk is greater. You do not need an elite running back, even though you need a running game. And it's not as much of a long-term investment comparison to needs at other positions that you also can get there that potentially are also equal or greater needs and can be more of long-term investments, more of your money worth over more years. The Pittsburgh Steelers should not draft a running back in the first round of this year's NFL draft. We'll see what they do. Either way, they certainly need to improve in the position. So don't get me wrong. They need to improve in the position. But you don't need an elite guy. That's the confusion. You need a running game in the NFL. You do. No running game doesn't keep anyone honest. It screws the quarterback no matter who he is. You need a running game. You don't need an elite back. The Steelers probably won't be able to go get an elite back. There are other needs. There are other ways. There's more of a long-term investment. The risk is there. And again, you don't need an elite back. The Steelers just shouldn't go running back. This isn't the year to go running back. They can improve it in other ways. That's it for this edition of the show. As I had to keep it real for you, I did offer some draft talk as we head towards, again, our draft show here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. So subscribe to the channel to get notification when we go live on draft night and really get notification for anything else we do here throughout our myriad of sites throughout the Pittsburgh Sports Now family of networks. And when anything is released, premiered, uploaded, goes live for Pittsburgh postgame and beyond. I'm Mike Asti, and I just had to keep it real with you. I had to settle that debate. I don't feel the Steelers should go running back in the first round. They need to improve the position. They really, really do. But scroll back, because all the reasons and takes I've provided are why the Steelers should not go running back in the first round this year.